Hi, Minesh Baxi here, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate. And we have a local person running for election here that will be sharing with us some of his insights, some of his reasons. And Dan, I'm sure I'm going to butcher your last name. So
okay.
Dan Agauas?
Agauas.
Agauas.
You came really close.
I came close, but my goodness,
Yeah.
I have a different last name.
Right.
Most people can't pronounce it either.
Right.
So Dan, you are a resident of Troy.
I am.
And you are running for Troy City Council this time.
I am. Yep. Troy
Well,
City Council.
fantastic. So tell me a little bit about you. You are born in Michigan, I'm assuming, or?
Yes, I've always been in Michigan, southeast Michigan area. I've been in Troy for 6 years or so. My wife and I moved into Troy when we first got married, essentially.
Okay.
So this is where we started building a family. I now have a 1-year-old. And
oh, very cute baby.
Yeah, exactly. I know you've met her, so you do quite well with the 1-year-old crowd. So we're happy in Troy. We're probably walking distance from a beautiful park, an elementary school where she's going to go someday. So we just love the beautiful neighborhood and community. So really happy to start building a family here.
Not too far from where we are right now.
I could have walked here, actually, if I didn't come from work. I could have walked here, right? Yeah.
So obviously, and you have a very different kind of profession than most people do.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about your profession and how do you think that ties into being a government politician or somebody trying to help the taxpayers.
Right. So the last 12 years, I've worked as a financial consultant, and being a financial consultant can mean a lot of different things, as you can probably imagine.
Correct.
But my specialty or my niche is I do a lot of forensic accounting work.
Okay.
I also work with lawyers in big commercial lawsuits, calculating damages, trying to get the right numbers in these big damage calculations. I do business valuations. So that sort of consulting work, it really helps me a lot when I look at, let's say, the budgets or the audited financial statements or some of the other, financial decisions in the city. It helps me on the analytical side.
Very interesting. So you are somebody who looks at these numbers of different organizations, their balance sheets, and obviously the different expenses, where the expenses are coming from, and try to understand their situation.
Exactly.
So it makes it easier, in my opinion, based on your experience, that if a city has a budget, if they have certain action items.
Exactly.
Because really, Dan, I'm good in math, but obviously I'm not good at accounting. I'm not good at bookkeeping and all of that stuff. I'm not a detailed guy. Here is the reason I'm trying to bring that up. Is a lot of people who enter politics have had no real experience, in my opinion, of balancing their own checkbook.
Yeah.
And then they are suddenly in charge of a multi-million-dollar or hundreds of $1 million or billions of dollars of, and they've really never held any awareness of how this actually works. Now, I'm sure some of them have good support systems and all that stuff, but in your case, you actually look at this for a profession. So how do you think this is helping you in maybe in budgets and so on and so forth? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I've worked on a huge range of different projects, but some of the companies I've worked for or the different lawsuits that I've been involved in from a third-party consulting standpoint, involved hundreds of millions, like you said, billions of dollars, some pretty big, complicated matters. And one big specific, example I can have here is the city of Troy, as you probably know, recently did a forensic investigation or report from Plant Moran, who's a third-party accounting firm. I've worked on very similar cases like that from the firm I work for, and I've done very similar, forensic analysis, fraud investigation, detection type work. Oftentimes, we're asked to step into a case and figure out how someone's been injured and quantify that, and then help them on a path to recover the financial losses that they suffered. So the Plant Moran report that was performed by Troy, that's sort of in my wheelhouse, almost an everyday, professional activity for me.
So your eyes won't glaze over when you see all these numbers, these charts, these spreadsheets. It's like, because I hate to say this, but a lot of people, when you look at numbers, they suddenly feel like they don't really have a good grasp on numbers. But you do, so that would be an asset in your opinion.
I'm probably more comfortable with numbers than the words, actually. I'd rather see the numbers. It's harder for numbers to lie than words sometimes, so it's a little better that way.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And also, you've already been involved in the Troy City civic responsibilities. So tell me a little bit about that.
So about 3 years ago, I got involved in the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
That's something that I don't have to run for an office to be on there. It was an appointment through City Council. And I've enjoyed my time on the Zoning Board of Appeals. For those that don't know what the ZBA does, and I wasn't an expert either going into it. Anytime you need a relaxation of the zoning ordinance, whether you're a homeowner or a business or for commercial reasons, what have you, if you need a relaxation of that zoning ordinance, you come before the zoning board. The zoning board will decide to grant that or not, depending on certain criteria. And the criteria is pretty, strict. The same list for every request that we see, and the applicant has to establish a practical difficulty or hardship with the property. So one of the factors that we consider is the health, safety, and welfare of that variance request, and the impact to the community and the neighborhood around it. So from that perspective, that's helped me kind of see good developments and bad developments for the city, and for a variance request, what's good or bad for a neighborhood based on that criteria of health, safety, and welfare.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think there's always a clash, in my opinion,
Sure.
between different competing interests.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, right.
So there is a competing interest of a builder wanting to say, hey, you know what?
Right.
We need to build this, whatever it is, whether it's
Sure.
an apartment building, whether it's a shopping, whether it's a
Right.
big house, or whatever that is which has a commercial interest in it.
Sure.
And there are people, obviously, who are
Right.
living close by,
Yeah.
who may have a feeling that maybe this will hurt their property values.
Of course.
Maybe they can't drive, children can run around,
Yep.
and they feel threatened about it. And it's always a very difficult thing, in my opinion,
Yes.
to balance it out.
Right.
Because, you want green spaces, you want all of that stuff, but you
Right.
also need commercial, because those are the people paying taxes.
Right.
So give me a little bit sense of, so people can hear and understand.
Sure.
How do you look at those things?
Well, you bring up a great point, because for whatever reason, that's the biggest issue right now. When you go around talking to residents and doing your door knocking, I would say by far the number one concern right now is the issue of development. In a way, that's a good problem to have, and I'll explain. It's good and bad. It's good because we're not talking about crime. We're not talking about homelessness. The economy is good. It's robust. 10 years ago, the city would kill to be in a position we are today, just because of how bad things were looking during the Great Recession. But now that we're in a good economy, now you have to start considering, okay, how can you protect those neighborhoods? Because you don't want over-aggressive development. And the way this plays into the city council's role is probably two different directions. One is upfront on the master plan, making sure that the rules are set and the vision is set upfront to protect neighborhoods, whether it's how things are zoned or different neighborhood nodes, what have you, but making sure that to the best of your ability, upfront, the master plan is fair for commercial interests and residential interests. Then on the back end, let's call it the back end here, a lot of times developers will seek a rezoning based on certain things. So it'll come before city council, and again, there's strict requirements that an applicant has to meet to be able to rezone, to go from, let's say, a single family residential to being able to build a big apartment complex. And so there's a lot of responsibility for city council to evaluate this properly, to make sure that essentially our neighborhoods are protected and the health, safety, and welfare is continued in that area. That's not impaired.
Exactly. And I think there are a lot of construction projects which have, like there is one sign on Rochester Road which says no condos, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you might have seen those.
I believe I know exactly what you're talking about. Is
that
the Sylvanwood area? Or?
Yes.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, Sylvanwood is the road there.
Yep.
And obviously there's another bone of contention near the Somerset Mall.
The McClure Alpine areas?
Yes, those are the two areas which are two very easily right now identifiable places.
Points. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you want to share anything about what your stances are,
Sure.
what people should know about how you are looking at these things?
Well, the simple answer for those two specific, proposals, I'm against both of those proposals for maybe slightly different reasons, but essentially coming back to protecting the neighborhoods. I was at a neighborhood forum at the McClure Alpine area, which is right by Somerset, north side of Big Beaver, and it just it didn't seem like that proposal to switch from single family to something to develop a bigger apartment matched the character or integrity of the neighborhood. There was recently new homes built there maybe 3 or 4 years ago, largely residential.
Correct.
The streets were narrow. There's some concerns about safety and how kids were walking to the school. So I didn't feel in that particular case that the builder met the requirements necessary for a rezoning. I mean, there's other factors too, but I think you hit on the head that those are two flashpoints where you pit commercial development against the residential neighbors, and unfortunately, we see a few different areas like that around the city of Troy right now.
Yeah, and those are just important things to be considered. And like you said, it's good to have that problem.
Right.
Sometimes I have seen city councils in different parts of the country. I know I used to be a Florida resident, and what I found out in one place was they made it so hard for commercial development that people were not willing to invest in it.
Exactly.
I remember that I had a friend who was donating a property for a charity. He was not doing it for commercial development in that respect, but he was going to make it available for latchkey kind of situation where children after school, they have a place to go. Like we have Boys and Girls Club of Troy here, like for something similar to that concept. And the council or the local body was extremely insistent on making sure there was so much parking available for so many people and so on and so forth.
Made it extra hard.
Eventually, they didn't do it.
Okay.
So who lost?
Right.
The kids lost.
Exactly.
The kids had a place they could have gone to, but by making the restrictions so many that obviously the community eventually lost in my mind about how that particular process could have gone.
Right.
What else would you like other people to know about you or where you stand in some of the other issues which are in front of the Troy City Council?
So we talked kind of about my financial background, the forensic investigation type skill set, and we talked about the zoning board of appeals background, which applies to a lot of the rezoning issues or the master plan issues with development. I'd say maybe the third big category for me is what to do about the green spaces. And that really ties into a lot of different issues here in Troy, or opportunities. The Civic Center, trails and pathways, highlighting and promoting our parks. I was one of the first candidates to publicly say that I was against any type of commercial development at the Civic Center. I wanted to make sure that public land was used for the full public. It wasn't split into different sections for retail or condos or what have you, but it was entirely for the public. And I'm not sure if you've heard of this or perhaps you had, but about a year ago, City Council commissioned a subcommittee that studied green space and open space here in the city. And they had certain recommendations on behalf of their studies to recommend to the City Council to take action on. And so far, a lot of that hasn't been done yet, including, fully developing the trails and pathway system, promoting our parks as kind of community nodes or community gathering spots. They want to put a little more effort in developing Sylvan Glen Park as far as like the premier park in our area. And then they also said that the Civic Center, although they didn't talk a lot about the Civic Center, they said, look, this is basically the elephant in the room. Something has to be done, and we hope that this is kind of like the legacy center, if you will, or the legacy park of the whole community. Because right now, Troy is really missing that gathering spot that a lot of other cities like Sterling Heights or Rochester does enjoy. We're a little bit behind, and we probably should invest a little more in that area.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. And elections are around the corner.
Yeah, so too soon, really. There's more to do.
I'm sure there are a lot of doors to knock on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there a website or a way that people can get in touch with you?
Easy to get in touch with me if you know how to spell my name. That's the only catch. It's www.danielagauas.com, and the last name is Agauas. Okay. We've got a Facebook page on behalf of the candidate committee. I think an email, phone, a lot of information out there, but probably the website's the best you can go to, danielagauas.com. Yep.
Fantastic. And obviously all candidates could use extra hands, extra feet knocking on the doors, and extra money too.
Come see me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happens. Right. Good. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap here?
Well, I think that was pretty good. All I can think of. Yeah, hopefully get out and vote. I know absentee votes, about over 4,000 have come in already.
That's
amazing.
We're
expecting probably another 4,000 just from the absentee side of it. So expect to be a pretty good turnout overall for 2019. And get out and vote.
How many registered voters do you think we have?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. I think other city council elections, we're in the neighborhood of 20,000 people just to turn out.
Okay.
Maybe that 18 to 20,000 range. I don't know as far as elected or registered voters.
That's fine.
Good question. You got me.
Well, I don't know the numbers either. I was just curious. So how many people do end up voting? So thanks again for coming. Thanks for watching. And obviously you can check out Dan at his website. And I will tell you that an informed citizen can do a lot better for their community. So thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.